Welcome back to Minor League Matters. I'm Ken Lammers, and today we're going to talk about one of the most important people in hockey. Well, at least one of the most important people on YouTube hockey, and that's Steve Dangle. And his book, This Team is Ruining My Life, But I Love Them. So, let's get cracking. All right, so for those of you who don't know who Steve Dangle is, and since a lot of people who I know don't know jack about hockey, let me tell you a little bit about who he is. Steve Dangle probably has the funnest videocast on YouTube about hockey. Now, there are other videocasts out there, 5 or 6 of them that I've found really. And I tried to do one of my own, and boy, that flopped after a very short period of time. But, there's really 2 major ones, and one is the hockey guy who's just kind of level and, not expresses knowledge and talks about what happened in games. And then there's Steve Dangle. And Steve Dangle, oh, by the way, his real name, in case you're looking for the book, is Steve Glenn. But the name he goes by on the videocasts and things is Steve Dangle, which is a nickname he picked up in high school, having to do with some sort of school newspaper, and has held on to ever since because dangle is a term used in hockey, and it means to deke, or those of you who are basketball folks, to break somebody's ankle, that sort of thing. And so he has, for at least 10, 11, maybe 12 years now, he's done what he calls LFRs, fan reactions, to every single Toronto Maple Leafs game. I mean, he is a super fan. He is an uber super fan, right? And he does a reaction to every game. And the book is his story about how that, along with other efforts, is what has kind of managed to move him along in life and put him where he is today. He's probably the biggest single non-corporate broadcaster on YouTube about hockey. I don't know what his numbers are right now. He's probably got like 9 gazillion people who watch his show, because he ranges in the Leaf fan reactions from, one day he'll be analytical. They've won. He's happy. They've won the last 3 matches. He'll talk rationally to the fans for the other teams about what they should get out of the game. He'll talk rationally about what happened to the Maple Leafs. He'll talk X's and O's, although he never makes a thing saying, that he knows a whole lot about X's and O's. Seems to when he talks, but he's really coming at it from a fan's point of view. And, so you'll get really good, rational, well thought out, well explained videocasts, and then come the times that Toronto loses. Now, if it's one loss out of the last 10 games, he'll be a little bit jumpy and not thrilled. But if they've lost like 3 in a row, about the 3rd, he just absolutely blows a gasket and just starts screaming and yelling and bouncing around and all that. And it is so much fun to watch, right? He just has an amazing amount of energy. I don't know how he does it. I don't know if I had that much energy when I was 16. He's got it somewhere, I think he's got to be about 30 now. So, they're fun to watch. They're informative. They're great, right? And he has used that, what this book is about, is really about his life as he goes through all that, and how he has, because of that channel and other efforts, because he's done a lot of other things as well, including working at a zoo for several years, but through a number of efforts, how he has managed to leverage this channel to have agreements with Russian sports channels at times, to have agreements with the big cheeses in Canada so he can get a job and that. And he's managed to get there, and in a truly kind of modern way, he's managed to put together all bunches of different things and make his life work. It's really rather impressive, to be honest with you. Just doing this podcast, this video cast for, we'll say 10 to 12 years is amazing. I mean, I don't know if any of you have done video casts before. I did one for a long time called CLTV. It was about law stuff, my real job, not this hobby. And it took a lot of effort, and eventually it went by the wayside because it never really caught traction outside of, maybe the 50 people a week who watched it, right? Now, Dangle's been doing this forever, and keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, and for the first couple of years, I don't know that he had much traction, but he's gained traction. He's gotten a lot of things, and the interplay between his work at the channels, at the actual big TV channels and on radio channels, and his podcast or his video cast has been pretty substantial and brought him a lot of fans, right? And on top of which, there are a couple of just absolute mega meltdowns that made big news and got put forward by a bunch of different video casts or blogs and that, and have put him forward. There's supposedly one that's just absolutely legendary, where I think Toronto lost 9-2 or something like that. You'll have to look it up. I'm told it's fairly easy to find because everybody points to it. So, he's kept going on. Just that would be exhausting. He's done that while running sometimes 2 or 3 different jobs to get where he is today, which is apparently a fairly substantially successful person, right? He does this video cast and continues to do this video cast. He has the Steve Dangle podcast, which he does with 2 other guys, and he also works out with works with Sportsnet or whomever at the moment, actually on a big TV channel type of thing, and so he is, by pretty much any definition, turned into a success. Along the way, he marries his sweetheart and makes life a good thing, gets a couple puppies, a child or 2 maybe, that sort of thing. He's moving along, and it's really kind of impressive. Now, I'm going to tell you, reading through this book, your life's not going to change by reading this book, right? This is, it's an enjoyable story. He knows how to spin a yarn, and that's what you're getting through this. This is the yarn of his life and what's gone on in it, and it's worth reading. It's fun to read, particularly if you really enjoy, following him on hockey podcasts, and it's worth it. Now, if you're not a hockey person and you've never watched Steve Dangle on YouTube, shame on you, but you probably aren't going to get much out of it. You'll enjoy it. He writes it well. It's plain spoken. It's well written, and he's a storyteller. He's just a good storyteller. So things that you and I would say that would just bore somebody to tears, he can put together in a way that makes you enjoy it, right? And he's also one of those people who's always positive. So he's not running anybody down. And a couple times in the book where he kind of talks about how this or that person did him wrong somehow, he almost always, I think pretty much always, he changes the names to protect the innocent, that sort of thing, or the guilty, actually. So it's a fun read. It's a good read. I suggest it to anybody who's really a hockey fan, and particularly if you're a fan of hockey as presented through YouTube and that sort of thing, because it's both a guy who wanted to be a sportscaster's success story, and it's a story of somebody who got on YouTube and how they were able to become successful. Now, this, I don't know how many followers he's got, probably about 9 gazillion now, but I get the feeling he's not like one of those guys like, what is it, PewDieTube or whatever up at the top who are making gazillions and gazillions of dollars through YouTube. I think he's probably making a decent amount through YouTube, partner, but he's out there working other jobs too. He's doing, and the podcast, so he's doing well, but he's scrambling to do well. So always an impressive thing when you see somebody, working hard so that they can fall into success. For those of you who know me and know where I've been the last few years, hockey came as the third sport when I started doing the trips around to watch sports and that. First of all, it was baseball, which summer sport, traveled around, watched the baseball games. Then came soccer as a fill-in when I had there's a Saturday, I can't, between, traveling to Dayton to Peoria to watch two teams, I can't find any baseball games I'm going to watch. Well, okay, I can pick up the Cincinnati and, watch them play, or I can maybe go watch Chicago Fire or Columbus, that sort of thing. So soccer kind of fell in, and it's enjoyable enough. Yeah, the way they score standings is absolutely terrible, but the game on the field is enjoyable. And then, I had this blank space through the winter. And as in all sports, and this has been a 4 or 5, 6 year climb for me, probably more like 4 or 5. At first you don't get all the rules, and over time I've gotten to know the rules better and better and better. And part of the fun of that, part of what has made that work and figuring out how hockey goes, is by watching this man here, who quite often is talking over my head because he seems to have memorized who every player in the NHL and AHL are. He's a little bit shaky on the ECHL, I think, but he seems to know everybody in the NHL and the AHL, at least everybody in the Marlies and on the Maple Leafs. And, he'll just start ranting about some player who's third line for the Penguins, in Pittsburgh. And I'll be sitting there going, yeah, okay. That sort of thing. And you'll be going, wow, this guy knows a lot about hockey. I'm closer to your average American, at least Southern American hockey fan. This guy is Canadian through and through and grew up with it in his bones and knows everything about it. Pretty close to I'm closer to that in baseball than I am in any other sport. But pretty close to what Americans get in baseball and football, where you're just grow up with it and it is just drilled into you from day one. And it is fun watching him, and he has been something that has drawn my interest and kept me going as much as anything else into hockey. Now, I do watch the hockey guy as well, who gives me a little bit more well-rounded and dummy-proof version where I can understand what he's saying more. But this is the man who brings excitement and fun to hockey, and this is the story about how he got there. And I recommend it to all of you. And I think Amazon charged me $11 for this book, 11 and some change. So all of you got that in your pockets, and you ought to buy this book and keep this man going, because I want to be able to watch his video casts for the next 20 years. And you should too. So that's it for today, folks. And, if you like what you saw here today, click the like button. That's down there somewhere. If you, like this channel generally, subscribe somewhere up here, I think, and hit the bell, because apparently if you don't hit the bell now, you don't necessarily even see what you subscribe to. And beyond that, I've just got one thing to say. Go watch some minor league sports, and masalama, y'all. Oh, and by the way, I picked this up off of him too. But the masalama, that's from me. So, y'all have a good week. Bye now.